So have you ever thought about growing, like, your own food?
Not just a tomato plant on the balcony or anything. I mean, like rows of those cool microgreens,
Yeah.
ones that are like bursting with flavor right there in your kitchen.
Right.
Well, today we're going to be diving into how to take those homegrown greens from like a casual thing to a real business.
Okay.
And get this, with a little help from automation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and you don't even need a robot farm or anything crazy like that.
Okay.
It's more about clever DIY setups and tech that's actually affordable.
Wow.
So are you ready to explore microgreen automation with me?
Absolutely. Let's dive in. This is a really interesting time for it. You've got this huge demand for fresh, local food, the whole sustainability movement.
Right.
And then you've got all this new technology that's like more accessible than ever. It's like the perfect time for microgreens to just like explode in popularity.
Totally. And to guide us on this deep dive, we're using Microgreens Automation Get Started, an ebook by Ronaldo Andrade. Full disclosure, I can barely keep a cactus alive.
Huh.
So the idea of growing anything for profit seemed, well, impossible, honestly.
Yeah.
But Andrade makes a really convincing argument for why automation is, like, the secret sauce here.
Okay, I'm curious.
It really comes down to three big things: saving time, saving money, and, let's be real, saving your sanity.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. The ebook really hits the nail on the head when it talks about time being the biggest challenge for small growers.
Right.
I mean, they're doing everything themselves, right? From those tiny seeds to selling the final product.
It's a lot.
So anything that gives them more time is, like, priceless.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Who has time to be hand-watering trays of microgreens every single day?
Right.
That's just not realistic if you're trying to, actually grow on a larger scale.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Andrade's point about even basic automation comes in. Just simple things like using timers.
Okay.
Or putting together a DIY irrigation system. It can be a complete game changer for these growers.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm curious, besides saving time, how does automation actually translate into, like, a more successful business?
Well, think about it. When it comes to food, consistent quality is key, right?
Yeah.
And that's even more important with microgreens because they're so delicate.
Right.
Even small changes in temperature, or if you're not watering them consistently, it can really impact how much you can grow and how good those microgreens actually look and taste.
That's true. So you're saying better quality leads to happier customers, which of course means more sales.
Exactly. And it's not just like a theoretical thing.
Right.
The ebook actually talks about this farm, Green Spirit Farms.
Okay.
They automated their irrigation. And guess what? They cut their labor costs in half.
Wow, 50% just from automating their irrigation. That's amazing. That's a serious return on investment. But what about the quality of the microgreens themselves?
It actually went up. Not only were they saving money on labor, but the consistent watering from the automated system meant better quality. Their yields increased, meaning they could grow even more. And their customers were happier because the microgreens were top-notch.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's a perfect example of how something as simple as automating your irrigation can make a huge difference.
This is already blowing my mind. We're just getting started.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got saving time, reducing costs, and even improving the quality of the microgreens. But I have to ask,
Yeah.
all this automation stuff, isn't that only for, like, the big farms?
The ones with tons of money to throw around. I mean, I'm a little intimidated by all the tech involved.
That's actually a really common misconception.
Really?
Yeah, and thankfully, it's one that Andrade tackles, like, right away in the ebook.
Okay.
He's got this whole section about how automation doesn't have to be expensive or super complicated.
Okay.
He talks about using these tools, Arduino and Raspberry Pi.
Wait, are we talking about those little DIY computer boards?
Yeah.
I've messed around with those a bit, like programming LEDs and stuff, but...
You're saying you can use those to manage a whole microgreen operation?
Exactly. I know it sounds kind of crazy,
Yeah.
but it totally works. Andrade gives these great examples in the ebook.
Sure.
Like, you can build a really simple automated irrigation system for less than $50 using an Arduino.
Wow, really?
Or you could use a Raspberry Pi with a temperature sensor to make like a mini climate control system for your setup.
Wow, I was picturing thousands of dollars.
Not like $50 and some DIY.
It's way more doable than people think.
This is starting to sound less like high-tech farming and more like, what do you call it?
Like turning my weekend electronics hobby into fresh microgreens or something.
I love that. And that's really what Andrade is going for. Like
Yeah.
making all this tech less scary, more accessible. He also mentions a bunch of free resources that can help people get started,
Like what?
like online courses
All right.
on hydroponics or controlled environment agriculture, even
Well, controlled environment agriculture. That sounds pretty,
intense. What is that?
it does sound kind of complicated, but it's actually really simple.
Okay.
Controlled environment agriculture, or CEA, just means you're like really managing the environment where your plants are growing.
Okay.
Like the light, the temperature, the humidity.
So, like, you're making the perfect microgreen climate.
Exactly.
Okay, and you said there are online courses about that?
Yep. Tons of them. Plus, there are all these online communities, forums.
Where you can connect with other growers, get advice,
Hopefully
even share your own tips. Oh, and there's even open source farm management software you can use.
Really?
Yeah, it helps you track everything, analyze your data, and really fine-tune how you're growing.
Wow. So even if you're not like a tech genius, there's help out there.
Totally.
That's really cool. But what about the tech whizzes?
What's next for them? Because Andrade hints at some seriously futuristic stuff in this ebook, right?
Absolutely.
The ebook does a great job with these accessible automation options. Yeah.
But then it's like, bam! It jumps into the really cutting-edge microgreen technology. This is where things get really exciting.
Okay, like what? Like, give me an example.
Okay, robotic harvesters.
Robotic harvesters. That sounds
awesome.
straight out of Star Wars.
I know, right?
But seriously, what would those even look like? Are we talking small scale too, or is that just for those massive farms?
Right now, it's definitely more for the bigger operations,
Okay.
but the technology is like advancing so quickly and it's getting cheaper.
Yeah.
Remember those Arduino boards?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine programming one of those to control like a little robotic arm
Okay.
that picks your microgreens at the perfect moment.
Whoa. That'd be cool. That's wild.
Right.
It's crazy to think that even small growers might be able to use that kind of tech someday.
Totally.
But even without, like, the robots, the data analysis part is pretty amazing too.
Oh, yeah?
Andrade talks about using data to, get this, predict the perfect time to water your plants.
So instead of just having like a sprinkler on a timer, you've got this system that's analyzing everything.
Right.
The soil moisture, the weather, I don't even know what else.
It's incredible.
It's like giving those microgreens the absolute best chance to thrive.
And the really cool thing is that this kind of like data-driven farming is becoming accessible to everybody.
Really?
Yeah, it's not just for the big guys with all the fancy equipment anymore.
That's awesome.
Like, imagine a future where even someone growing microgreens in their basement has the same level of data as a huge commercial farm.
Wow.
It's like leveling the playing field for anybody who's passionate about growing fresh local food.
That's amazing. You know, what started as a deep dive into microgreen automation has really become like a sneak peek into the future of food.
It is.
It's super inspiring to think about how this technology could change things for small farmers, for people in cities, everyone, really.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening who's ever thought about, maybe starting their own microgreen thing, or even if you're already growing and looking for ways to improve, what's the one thing to take away from all of this?
I think the big takeaway here is that automation is for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just a buzzword or something that's only useful for these giant farms. It's a really powerful tool, and it's getting easier and easier to use all the time. And with a little creativity, the right tech, anyone can turn their love of fresh, sustainable food into a real business.
I love that. So well said. That reminds me, Andrade's ebook, Microgreens Automation Get Started, that's definitely going on my reading list.
That's a good one.
Who knew tiny plants could involve such cool technology? This deep dive has me totally wanting to ditch my sad house plants and build a microgreen setup. Maybe I'll even try one of those DIY irrigation systems. What about you? What really stood out to you from our deep dive today? Let us know. And until next time, happy growing.